Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Atlanta, Georgia, it's time for Atlanta Business Radio. Brought to you by OnPay, Atlanta's new standard in payroll. Now, here's your host.
Lee Cantor here, another episode of Atlanta Business Radio, and this is going to be a good one. But before we get too far into things, it's important to recognize our sponsor, OnPay. Without them, we could not be sharing these important stories. Today on Atlanta Business Radio, we have Rick Goddard with the Southern Brewing Company. Welcome, Rick.
Hey, how are you? Thanks for having me on.
Well, I am doing well. I'm excited to learn what you're up to. Tell us about the Southern Brewing Company. How are you serving folks?
Well, the Southern Brewing Company has been around now for a little over 6 years. We just had our 6-year anniversary. We're in Athens, Georgia, and we serve great craft beer to the state of Georgia. Our distribution is statewide, and we have 2 tap rooms. A mini brewery in Monroe, Georgia, and our main production facility in Athens.
So what's your backstory? How'd you get into this line of work?
It's kind of a crazy backstory. Growing up, I always wanted to go into politics. And so being from Houston County, I went up to Washington, D.C. with Senator Chambliss he was a congressman at the time, as an intern, and spent a good 8-9 years with him and ended up being the chief lobbyist for the beer industry. So I represented 93% of the beer sold in America for 8 years. And I just absolutely loved the story of craft beer and how businesses across the country, manufacturing businesses from across the country, were created out of people's garages, basements, and kitchens. And they're just great people and great stories. And, I started to have a family and didn't want to raise them in Washington, D.C., so I had to figure out how to get home to Georgia, and what better way than craft beer. So that's kind of how the Southern Brewing Company came into existence.
Now, are you finding that, I guess because the laws must have changed at some point to allow these kind of craft brewing companies to pop up, because it seems like there's a lot more of them today than there was, 20 years ago?
So laws in Georgia have started to be more favorable to the manufacturer. All these laws were put into place at the repeal of Prohibition. The federal government put an umbrella out there for states to regulate alcohol inside their border how they saw fit. So with 50 states, there are 50 different alcohol laws. So if you're expanding into other states, you got to learn another system. And Georgia had just really had antiquated laws, and the legislator and governor have been great. They've recognized that craft is a manufacturing business that is growing, and there's people that love the liquid, and not only are they consumers, but they're voters. And so when the Brewing Guild goes to the legislator and talks about things that can better help us do business, they've been very helpful and allow us to actually make money selling the product that we make.
And I think that they add kind of some culture and some kind of local flair to the communities they serve. It becomes kind of embraced by the community, these microbreweries that are popping up around town.
Absolutely. It's a gathering place. I always say that beer bonds. If you don't want to go have a beer with somebody, you're probably not going to hang out with them anywhere else. And so it really does create a gathering place for communities. Like our location in Monroe, we didn't really have a lot of distribution around that area before we opened up. And then we opened right before COVID hit, and people have been fantastic in Walton County. The local government has been fantastic. We We actually moved to the United Community Bank there in Monroe because they were frequenting us and recognized that that we could do business together. So the community really does rally around the local businesses that come and invest in their communities.
Now, it's one thing to kind of have this hypothesis of, oh, a microbrewery would work here, but the bottom line is you have to have a good quality product that the community embraces. How do you kind of create that unique flavor profile that people crave and want more of?
Interesting question. The human palate is just, everybody has a different opinion of what they like, and it's some of our most popular beers are, one is a sour. It's a raspberry blackberry Berliner, which we call Red and Black, and some people can't get enough of it. But if your palate doesn't really gravitate towards a sour, you're not going to like it. So the beauty of craft beer is we have got beers that run the gamut of what craft is. We have dark beers, we have lagers, we have sours, IPAs. So you can really steer people into the direction that really fits their palate, and that's kind of how you create consumers. They may have been a Bud Light drinker or a macro brand drinker, but we've got a light lager, and people like to shop local, as we mentioned. And if someone comes in and say, I've been a Budweiser drinker my whole life, what do you have similar? We've got something. And it's kind of I kind of joke about it being the gateway beer for macro drinkers to come and drink micro.
Now, how important is kind of the design and graphics on your products?
It is really important. Marketing is expensive, and so is designing your labels. We worked with a branding company from Indiana that helped us rebrand after we were in business for a couple of years, to really give us that professional look. Because it all is perception. People go to the grocery store or the bottle shops, and if your label doesn't look professional and the branding isn't quite what it should be, people may not take a chance and spend $12 on your six-pack.
So it just sounds like there's so many moving parts of this. It isn't as simple as, I brewed something and I'm going to throw it out there. There's a lot of testing. There's a lot of experimentation in order to really create the right fit.
Absolutely. We've got, our brewers are fantastic. They're very ingenuitive. And one of the things, right when we opened, we're in a town with the University of Georgia, obviously, and Athens Tech, and their heads of biology departments came over, and they're like, "Why don't you catch your own yeast to brew beer with?" And we're like, "We didn't know you could do that." So we worked with the schools and caught 87 different yeasts off rare and common Georgia plants. We were working our way through them, but we found that a yeast that we cut off the Cherokee rosebush and a wild azalea yeast strain makes fantastic beer. And so we're the only people in the world with those yeast strains. Some of the ones we caught taste like wet cardboard, but these two that we found have done a fantastic job of creating great flavor profiles that you really can't find in any other style of beer, because they are unique to our brewery.
Yeah, that's a great story, and that just shows you how immersed in the community you are.
Absolutely, and we still work with both of those heads of biology to, it's a teaching tool. They bring students over to kind of show them real life application of what they're doing in school.
Now, talk about COVID a little bit in terms of, obviously it had to impact people going into the tap room for a period of time. But did it really impact sales? Because I would imagine a lot of folks were bringing stuff home.
So, yeah, COVID was a very interesting and challenging problem to have with everyone. But we're a small and family-owned brewery, so what money's coming in the door is what money's going out the door to pay salaries, buy ingredients, and all that. So I had to really make a decision early on with my partner, and we decided that with all the unknowns, we had to shut down the brewery for 10 weeks. And so we brewed, we filled the tanks, and you can only brew so much beer because you run out of tank capacity. So we couldn't brew once and then brew again and just have enough beer to sustain us for 10 weeks. So what we found was people, yes, were purchasing more beer to go home, off-premise sales, because restaurants weren't open, and so the shelves were starting to get empty. We were going over there and packaging as much as we could, but we ran out of beer. And so beer isn't something that you can create overnight. So with 10 weeks out of production, we had to go in and brew everything back, but the shelves, our distributors were out of beer, the store shelves were out. So it took us about 8 months to really catch our tail and catch back up from all those lost sales over that 10-week period and the ability to not brew beer.
So now, were you kind of forced to do some things that maybe were outside of the scope of what you intended the company to be, but you were able to create kind of additional maybe product services or loyalty programs or anything like that?
We did do pop-up, like in Monroe, for example. We did this in Athens too, but like I said, we opened the Monroe location about in October of 2019, so a few months before the COVID pandemic really hit. And so what we would do is go over and not open up, but post on social media that we're doing a pop-up 6-pack sale. So we would go over there and just open the door and sell beer to go out of the tap room, and the community just we had line down the block, people that thanked us for doing this, and one of the reasons they came was to make sure that we stay open because they love the location, they love our product, and they didn't want us to leave. And we even had people dropping by and giving us a $20 bill to give to the staff that weren't working. So it was really cool to see that whole community come together just through a pop-up beer sale that we didn't do beforehand.
And that kind of scarcity also brings in a crowd that says they don't want to miss out on this because they don't know when it's coming back.
Yeah, well, that too, And I think, at the time we started doing it, people were getting stir crazy in their house and ready to get out and do something, even if it was stand in line and buy beer.
Now, can you talk a little bit about the Southern Woodpile Program?
So the Southern Woodpile Program was created out of that wild yeast program that we kind of created with the University of Georgia and Athens Tech. We've got hundreds of barrels that we use to age beer in. We've got tequila barrels, bourbon barrels, white wine barrels, red wine barrels, and in all of those programs we use those wild caught yeast. None of it is production yeast, and I would probably say that 99% of the beer made in America is made with commercially bought yeast, and might even be a higher percentage than that, because I don't even know anybody that has their own yeast strain, especially a brewery our size. But we really had, COVID was a interesting thing. And that barrel program wasn't really affected by COVID because, we age beer from a year to 2 years in those barrels. And that's why we didn't really see any issues with that with closing for 10 weeks.
Now, what are you most looking forward to? What are you seeing in the future?
I'm really looking forward to, restaurants and bars getting back to normal. Here in Athens, there's still a lot of restaurants that aren't at full capacity. There's staffing issues, and so that really hurts the beer sales on our side because there's not many people at the restaurant, and they're not staying as long. So we're seeing beer sales on premise going down.
Are you seeing that? Part of your business is in the location sales, but you also distribute throughout the state, right?
Correct, and that's basically what we're seeing the most hurdles to get over is getting these restaurants back open, getting people feeling comfortable to stay longer, sit at a bar, sit close to people. I don't really love the social distancing term because people are social, and I don't really want to see people not being social and staying away from each other because, like I said earlier, beer bonds, and sitting around, hanging out, and being social is very important, especially to beer sales.
Now, are you available in like liquor stores or grocery stores?
We are. We sell in both of those locations. We're looking to expand our footprint in the larger box stores like Kroger and Publix. We also are in a lot of bottle shops around the state, liquor stores that are not the company or the big company-owned grocery stores, but local mom-and-pop locations.
So if somebody wants to learn more about your offerings or check out the tap rooms, what's the website? What's the best way to find you?
Our best way to find us is www.sobrewco.com.
That's SOBREWCO.com.
Correct. And you can find us on Facebook and Instagram. We also have a Twitter account, all under the same SoBrewco.
Good stuff. Well, Rick, congratulations on all the success, and thank you so much for sharing your story today.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right, this is Lee Cantor. We'll see y'all next time on Atlanta Business Radio.